Hello, so today we're going to look at developing an engaging story or developing an engaging piece of creative writing and using language for effect here. So first off, we'll have a look at the story that we're going to be improving. I'll give you a couple of seconds to read this. You can pause it if you like, but safe to say it's quite a boring story. There's not much going on in the way of description here, and it just doesn't read very well. So we're going to look today at how we could go about improving this. Now, the first thing we can do is we can make use of figurative language. And we can think to ourselves, okay, we use figurative language for a reason. We use it to sort of get across an atmosphere. So is there anywhere in this story we can be using a metaphor or a simile? So you can pause the video now and see whether you can figure out anything that you could be doing here. So, I could, for example, change this opening sentence to "it was as dark as a basement on a moonless night." So I'm using a simile here. Instead of just saying it was dark, I'm sort of comparing it to something else which is very dark. And of course, me using the idea of a basement there gives you the idea that there might be something a little bit scary, a little bit untoward happening later on in the story. So do make sure you make good use of figurative language. Now the next thing we can do here is we can engage all the senses. Now writing that only shows you what the narrator is seeing, or what the main character is seeing, is boring. Because humans have 5 senses, so be sure to try and engage those. Just to give you a hint, the sense of smell is incredibly powerful. It can evoke images, it can evoke memories. Also the sense of hearing as well is very important. Sense of taste, yeah, it's important if you're describing food, but otherwise we don't tend to use it as much. But we can also describe how something might feel underneath someone's hands. So for example, this bit here, I could develop that a bit more by just talking about what my character can smell as well. So do make sure you're engaging all the senses there. Now another thing to do is to give a bit of insight into your character. Now stories are often written in the first person. That's where you write as if the narrator is the main character using I. Or what is called the third person omniscient. Now the third person is where the narrator is telling the story as if they were a detached camera watching everything unfold. Third person omniscient is where the story is told like that, so it's saying, I don't know, John walks to the bank, but we get an insight into what's going on in the characters' heads. So let's see what we can do here. Now, we've got a little bit of this here, but I think we could develop it a little bit more. Now can you see here, because we've got that insight now into what the character's thinking, it allows us to develop the story a bit more, because now we're getting this idea of someone who's in a rush, for whatever reason. Now, this is the other important part here. Showing, not telling. You don't want to just tell your reader that, for example, a room is messy. It's boring. What you want to do instead is you want to show. You want to use your descriptive language to show that the room is messy or that the character is afraid. And we're going to have a look at that now. It was an old building. How could I improve that? Well, let's lose that bit. How could I describe an old building? Well, I could say, There we go. So instead of just saying it was an old building, I'm describing what this old building might look like. Now, moving on to the last point here really, is varying sentence structure. Now, different sentence structure can have different effects on your reader. Short, simple sentences can be used for dramatic effects, whereas if you use more complex sentence structures, that can be used to create a sort of detailed overview of something happening. So make sure you use these appropriately and well. Now, in the additions that I've added, I've already started to do some of this, as you can see. We've got some complex sentences coming out here, and we've got a compound sentence up there. I would probably think about turning this sentence into a slightly more complex sentence structure. I'd probably be using some imagery to do the street lighting there. So there we go. That's how you use various different methods to make sure that your writing is not boring. Make sure that you're engaging your reader. So just a very quick recap. What we want to do is we want to make sure we're using figurative language, so metaphors, similes, personification, that sort of thing. We want to make sure we engage all the senses, so we're not just talking about what the narrator can see. We're also talking about what they can smell, what they can hear, what they can touch, and possibly even what they can taste. We want to give some insight into what your characters are thinking as well. We want to make sure that we're showing. We're not just telling someone that a room is messy or it's cold outside. We're describing what the effects might be, what it might look like. And we want to make sure we vary sentence structure throughout. So there we go.